Everybody get up, no need to cram now. We got a real jam going down, going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Welcome to the IntelliJAMS.
We are jamming, and what you're probably noticing is this is not Adam. We have a special guest. We are going to be trying to bring on more special guests onto the jam so that we can jam about different topics. I referred to him as the professor of IntelliGems testing the other day. I've got Rohan joining us. And Rohan, today I wanted to jam. So Rohan is a senior success manager here at IntelliGems. He is way more knowledgeable about the product and how our brands are utilizing IntelliGems than I am. And when people think about IntelliGems, I feel like price testing is probably the first thing that pops into people's head about like, that's what IntelliGems is. But obviously, like, I don't love that because we do so much more than price testing. Like, realistically, we allow you to test pretty well anything, any business decision really, for a D2C brand. So I was hoping that you could jam with me on other ways that brands are using IntelliGems that you think are either cool, creative, effective. Just wanted to kind of get your take on non-price testing tests that our brands are doing.
Awesome. Excited to chat on that. So I'd say one area that I've seen some brands test, but I'd also love to see brands kind of lean into a little bit more is going to be on the shipping side. And specifically with these shipping rates, there's just so much we can both test with the rate itself. And then depending on kind of what the results are saying, it kind of just opens up the door for more marketing, content, kind of other business decisions and other impacts to just kind of ripple out from just the core test itself. I think like a really clean example of that, it's been a while, but I'd say around a year ago, we had a brand test just site-wide free shipping versus a pretty like rigid, I think it was like a $200 threshold and maybe like $10 shipping rate beneath that threshold. So it was a very stark difference for them to test just going free shipping for their entire business. And I think one of the interesting things that we saw, not necessarily in the result itself, but with the free shipping group kind of performing similarly from a profit per visitor and a revenue per visitor standpoint to the shipping threshold group, what it actually allowed the brand to do is open the door for so much more marketing. They could put this on their Facebook ads, their Meta ads that, hey, we offer site-wide free shipping now. And basically this kind of led to some more upstream effects beyond just the test itself, which I thought was really cool.
That's really interesting. And when you say shipping rate test, so I think like a common use of IntelliGems is to test shipping thresholds. Like at what point do you get free shipping? But at the beginning of that, you were talking about the shipping rate itself. So like, hey, how much am I actually going to charge for the shipping? And I think this is an interesting one because like you went to an extreme there with like, hey, let's charge versus not charge. But
yeah,
even in like, I see a lot of brands that are like, oh, I'm just going to charge break even on shipping rates. I'm going to charge, like, I'm going to do it at a loss. To me, I'm going to do it at like a $4 loss, which is like, this is a really interesting thing to test because if I can go from, again, if I'm going to do it at a loss and I'm losing $4 an order on anyone who does it like on free shipping or just paying like, hey, you're going to pay $4, but it actually is costing me $8. If I can get that from $4 to $6, that's like $2 basically straight to the bottom line on every single one of my orders. And if you don't see a drop off, like that's basically free money.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say like the way I like to think about it is really with these threshold tests, they tend to be these like AOV builders, almost like these discount tests where we're really seeing if we can manipulate the average order value of our customers. Like by their increasing, maybe sometimes decreasing the threshold, can we just get a order value that's better for our business? I think with these rate tests, you pointed out kind of like the two effects. We can either basically see just like this uptick in conversion just by, dropping the rate, whether it's at break even, whether it's a little bit lower, whether like in my example, it's free altogether. Maybe we can just really spike the conversion we're seeing from our customer base. Or on the flip, and I think there's a lot of merit to going in this side as well, can we add $1, $2, maybe even $5 to each of our orders without seriously hitting our conversion rate? And I think the last thing that you can really toss onto all of this, which makes it really interesting, is just like the shipping rate setup itself. Like working with a lot of different D2C brands, I've seen so many different shipping rate setups. Like some people offer a 1 to 2 day rush shipping, and then also like a 3 to 5 day expedited, and then just like your standard, 7 to 10 day. Some people just have the rush. Some people have like 3 different options that then have tiers that unlock for free shipping as well. Like you have free shipping and then free expedited. So there's a lot of different incentives that you can place on the table, and then also like revenue levers that you can pull at when you're looking at your shipping profile. And then with all of that, it's obviously, I'd say, easiest to test and then kind of just figure out what exactly is resonating with the customers there.
I love that one. The shipping rate itself, shipping thresholds too, like you were saying, hey, that's a great AOV booster. Like it's a great lever to pull on. But yeah, the shipping rates I think is like a very underutilized test type. And again, one where if you can find an extra dollar or two there, that's like significant dollars over the course of a month.
Yeah,
Is there
absolutely.
is there anything else that you're seeing is kind of like, I guess like that was one that's underutilized. Is there one that you see like, hey, brands are gravitating towards this, but like, hey, we might not be known for it?
Yeah, I'd say there's probably like the content testing side. From what I've seen, there's like a mix of recognition with customers I'm working with in terms of how much they realize we can do for content testing, and just kind of just like general CROs. So we have the ability to kind of do split URL tests and test whether different landing pages, whether even different like first page views. A test I really like is someone tested their landing page that they were running versus sending people straight to the homepage versus sending people straight to the PDP, which worked for their business because they were like a smaller product catalog and they had like one flagship product. And they actually found that sending people straight to the PDP was the best. So stop investing in kind of building out landing pages and let's make sure our PDP is as strong as it can be. So things like that are super valuable. And then even going beyond the testing standpoint, like we have this feature called personalizations, which actually allows you to target specific changes to your site to specific audience cohorts, right? And I think that's something that we've started to see brands lean into. It's not something that's very known throughout the space. And I think this concept of personalizing is also something that's pretty early on in kind of like the e-commerce space. But it's really interesting because I think we can leverage things we know about the customer and the visitor who's hitting our site just based off of, the ad that they're coming from or the landing page that they're hitting, and just create a more relevant kind of customer experience and a customer journey for them while they're then browsing.
Yeah, you said when you were saying content testing, they were like traditional CRO. I like when I've been talking about IntelliGems, I've been saying like, hey, go beyond the page with what you are able to experiment with, what you can test with. But like, hey, don't forget that you can also test on the page as well. Like you were talking about landing page versus PDP versus home. We're also seeing a lot of brands do kind of like on the page, like buy box for like how am I going to manipulate the buy box, and like for personalizations, this group is going to see this group is going to see that. And I think the best, I don't know, something that I love about the personalization side of things is like, hey, I like this. This is winning for this group. Okay, I'm going to actually just like make that a thing for my site for that group ongoing. Like that was a winner for that group. Let's keep it specifically for that group.
Yeah. And I think it's almost like, I don't want to say naive, but it's like impractical to think that just at the most basic standpoint, visitors who are returning to my site, who have experienced my product, experienced my brand, they're going to be shopping and browsing in a slightly different way than first-time visitors. There's going to be different messaging I want to promote. There's going to be different products I maybe even want to show, depending on who you are. And being able to kind of lean into that, making sure that we're showing the best information we possibly can to each visitor is just, it's so valuable.
Something that I used to talk about in a previous role was the concept of like shop versus buy mode, where it's like, hey, first time customers are in shop. Like I want to explore, give me all the content. I'm going to click around. Where returning customers are a little bit more in buy mode, where it's like, I know what I want. Just give me like a seamless, easy experience to get from point A to point B. I don't want to go for as much of like an explore. And I think that's like a really interesting concept, at least like to experiment within and like see how much validity is there. And again, like, all of this, we're just giving kind of like tactics, high level ideas. The best thing for anyone listening to do is like go test for yourself. Everyone's business is different. Let's find like the realities of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that's something that comes up often, especially when I'm like onboarding a brand. They're just like, oh, what are kind of the best recipes or best like tests I can be running? And it's so hard to answer that in a one size fits all scenario. There's just so many different nuances based on your industry, based on your product catalog, based on your ad journey and your customer journey and things like that, where truly tests we see work for some businesses, they have completely different results if you're even maybe even the same industry, just have a different site, different flow, things like that. So obviously there's some, general takeaways we can draw from testing as a whole and like, insights from industries as a whole, things like that. But there truly are specifics to each business. And I think one of our customers said this early on, like one of the things they love with IntelliGems was that they actually got to like, instead of making business decisions based off their competitors, they're able to make it based off of their customers. And I thought that was just such a clean way to kind of phrase this, which is, I think oftentimes when you're kind of like making decisions, setting things up, it is really smart to go look at what else is going on in the marketplace. But equally, you need to consider how your customers and your visitors are operating.
I think that's such an important point. And I started this by like, hey, what are some underutilized tests or experiments for brands? I think like you just made me think of one, which is essentially like you said follow your competitors, but like how often do we hear, oh, like why is that the way it is? Well, like I guessed, or it seemed like it was the standard, or like some variation of that. If you're listening to this and you're like, hey, what's a great thing to start testing with IntelliGems is anything that you put into place over the last 5 years that has just become kind of like the standard for you. It's probably not the optimized route. It's probably not the optimized solution. Like that's a great place to start instead of like, hey, give me a best practice. What's something that you've kind of held to be true for so long that you probably should go back and make sure it actually is true?
Yeah. And I'd say like even within the seasons, like we've seen brands have different results in the calendar year for things as price tests, shipping tests, which it makes sense. People are operating very differently depending on whether we're in that Black Friday, Cyber Monday time of year, whether it's kind of the summer holidays, and equally kind of when it's the beginning of the year and things are kicking off. So yeah, things are always changing. Obviously, the overall economic climate continues to change, but even within those seasons, there's a lot of interesting trends we see.
Yeah, seasonality, market changes, like your competitors are changing. Like the market in general is just constantly changing around you. So to think that hey, something I set even like 5 years ago is still accurate, but even something like 6 months ago, like everything is changing around you constantly. And I
Yeah.
think like again, that's for me the biggest benefit of a testing framework and a testing roadmap is you don't need to guess. You can actually just know.
Totally. And like, I mean, obviously a very practical example was like the tariffs that hit earlier in this year. And I think that's when we did see a lot of customers both react and kind of change their roadmaps, but then also just rethink through, hey, what's my strategy going to be for these next couple of months, both, you know, depending on how everything kind of plays out then. And just being prepared is the most valuable thing.
And I think like that one was a good one for getting people to think through some of the experiments that you mentioned, like shipping, like, hey, my cost of goods sold is going up by X%. Should I raise my price by that percent? Oh, I don't know if I can raise my prices 50%,
Yeah.
30%. Like that seems like a massive jump. Like no one's going to want that. But hey, you don't actually need to move your prices by that. Like there's all these different levers you can pull where you can actually make that up on the aggregate across a bunch of different places.
Yeah, and actually, that's one of the reasons I do like to point towards the shipping test. We actually had a brand who approached us right when all of this tariff stuff happened, and I think even independent of that, they're really interested in testing some higher prices just to recover a little bit more margin per product. It didn't perform that well. They saw some like conversion dips. Overall, they didn't see, I'd say, enough of an uplift to feel confident in rolling out a higher price. But we then took that test to the shipping rate side. We tested some higher shipping rates, and it was perfect. Like they saw basically no conversion change. They were able to rescue a couple extra bucks per order, pretty much the same amount that they were going to rescue per unit. So for people who were purchasing, you know, one unit, it was the exact same money that they were able to make and recoup per order. And just by framing it in the shipping side compared to on the product price side, worked out wonderfully for them.
All right, last question for you here. And I know we already talked about like, hey, it's going to be different for every single business. Make sure like you're figuring it out in the realities of your business. But from your perspective, like as someone on the success side, brands are coming to you. Is there any test or experiment that we haven't talked about already that's like, I wish every brand coming in would experiment in like this area or in this way because I think it just provides a ton of value?
Well, I'd say like the obvious answer is going to be the price testing, right? Like your product price is just like the foundation of your business. It what dictates your bottom line. It what dictates your conversion. Like there's just so many different ripple effects that your pricing structure and strategy will have. So I'd say that kind of is a one size fits all. Like I think everyone needs to be just making sure they're in touch with their product pricing strategy and making sure that it's constantly up to date. So That's a big one. I'd say outside of that, one of the biggest things I like to recommend to brands, and especially one of the like, I don't want to say mistakes, but like one of the areas where we see brands start to like just waste time essentially, is like when we start to test on areas of the site or areas of the overall shopping experience that have very low touch, very low traffic. So one of the things I do like to do with brands when we're first working with them is just pull up like, hey, what are the like highest visit first page views and like, most common UTMs that people are coming through? Like, where is your traffic actually kind of coming from and going to on your site? Because that's where we should focus our time, especially up front. Even when we're talking about basic content changes, it's going to be a lot more valuable to test a different color, for example, on a page that's getting 1,000 views compared to a page that's getting 100 views. And I think that's something that it's always good to take a step back on, especially when we're first establishing a testing program, and just really figure out where is my traffic spending most of its time. So that way we can, just be really efficient in the tests that we're running.
Do you think that the reason brands maybe like nibble on pages that aren't as like high traffic is like, oh, I'm trying to reduce the potential risk of like having like a downside impact? And like, if so, anything to help people kind of like either like tactics or like thought processes on, hey, don't go nibble there, like go do something somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, I would also caveat, like, at some point, it's always worth fine tuning everything. It's just, especially early on, I think bigger swings is the best way to approach it. And I think our founders even have like a newsletter talking about big swings and things like that. Like, that's where we're going to see the biggest results. We can always, I think, whittle down our experimentation pathway after taking kind of larger changes and seeing how customers are responding to things across the site, rather than hoping someone's going to just stumble upon this one specific niche area of the site. And then again, over time, like, we are going to see some data, we are going to see some relevance, but overall, the goal is really to try and grow profits as a business, right? And to grow profits as a business, we need to spend time on where people are spending time as well. I think that was one of the things that Jerry, our head of services here at IntelliGems, when I was first chatting with him when he came on board, it was like really eye-opening to see how he's approaching some of the like product mix and pricing strategy. And sometimes I'd have conversations with him about price tests, and he'd keep drawing me back to like, hey, Rohan, this product is actually not a very top seller for their business. So even if we're, getting a slight conversion bump here, it's actually better to maybe just rescue the margin, because there's not going to be overall growth to the business by getting a small conversion bump on a product that's already your head best seller. So just extrapolating that mindset to the rest of the site, like, we want to see pages that are going to have big impact. We want to take swings that are going to be big, because overall we're all going to be trying to grow our profits.
Yeah, I've been referring to it lately as like micro and macro testing. Is like, yes, you need to continue to do micro testing. Like, you will find small wins and those small wins can stack up. But like, if you don't take a big swing, if you don't look for something at the more macro level, like you were talking there about like catalog mixes, how I bundle products, how I merchandise products, these are like higher level business decisions that can have a massive impact on basically the profit profile of your business, more so than optimizing inside of a specific page for a specific ad for a specific product.
Totally. And to be clear, just want to like, I agree. The micro testing, the micro decisions are important. I think just when working with brands overall, one of the common mistakes I think I see people go down just early on is just chasing some of these micro decisions. And I think up front, it's best to kind of establish a baseline across the business. What are our best landing pages? What are our best PDPs? What are our best products and pricing strategy and shipping rate strategy? Like, all of that, we need to establish some really strong baselines. And then it's great to mix in micro strategy. It's really important to mix in some micro testing and very specific projects.
I love that. The analogy here is like, we have a massive piece of marble and we're going to go create a sculpture. And we don't want to take out the smallest chisel we have and start working away at that marble block. Like, we need to take some like heavier tools to it, and then we can start to refine from there. Like you were saying,
I love that.
Baselines, like, oh, like, okay, this is the torso, this is the legs. Okay, now we can start to get more micro in terms of like what we're testing and like what we're optimizing for.
Yeah, no, really love that a lot, analogy.
All right, Rohan, this has been amazing. Thanks for jamming with me.
No, thanks for having me.